Today, Honda is one of the greatest engineering companies on Earth. Its machines travel millions of miles every single day. Cars, motorcycles, race engines, power equipment, they're trusted across the world. But very few people know that it all began with a boy who had almost nothing. He was the son of a poor blacksmith from a tiny Japanese village. He hated school, never finished college, nearly died behind the wheel of a racing car, and later became so focused on engineering that someone else had to run the business side of his own company. By every logical measure, Soichiro Honda shouldn't have built a global empire. Yet somehow he did. But here's the part that surprises most people. Honda almost never became a car company. Its story didn't begin with an automobile or a factory. It began in a broken Japan with a discarded engine, a bicycle, and one simple problem. So how did a village boy who failed, crashed, and watched everything he'd built disappear create one of the world's greatest engineering companies? To answer that, we have to go back to a single, unforgettable smell. The year was 1906. In the quiet countryside of Shizuoka, Japan, Soichiro Honda was born into a family that had very little money. His father repaired bicycles, worked as a blacksmith, and fixed almost anything people brought to him. The workshop wasn't glamorous, but to young Soichiro, it felt like magic. While other children played, he watched gears turn. He watched sparks fly. He watched broken machines come back to life. School never fascinated him. Machines did. To him, every bolt, every gear, every strange noise was a puzzle waiting to be solved. Then one day, everything changed. An automobile passed through his village. At the time, cars were incredibly rare in rural Japan. The moment he saw it, he ran. He chased it as fast as his legs would carry him. Eventually, the car disappeared into the distance, but it left something behind, the smell of gasoline. Years later, Honda would remember that moment. To everyone else, it was only exhaust. To him, it smelled like possibility. At just 15 years old, Honda left home and traveled alone to Tokyo. He believed he was going there to become a mechanic. Reality had different plans. Inside the repair shop, there were no engines waiting for him, only a broom. He swept the floors, cleaned the workshop, ran errands. Sometimes he even looked after the owner's child. Imagine that. The future founder of Honda working in an automobile garage without being allowed to touch a single customer's car. But Honda wasn't wasting time. He watched everything. Every repair, every mistake, every solution. He wasn't learning from books. He was studying the people around him. Slowly, his hands became as skilled as his eyes. Before long, the owner trusted him enough to run an entire branch workshop. The village boy, who once carried a broom, was now leading a garage. Business was growing. Life finally seemed to be going his way. Then, his greatest passion almost killed him. Honda loved speed. He built racing cars, modified engines, and pushed every machine to its absolute limit. In 1936, during a race, his car crashed violently. It flipped. He was thrown from the wreckage. His shoulder was shattered. His face was badly injured. For a moment, it looked like the story of Soichiro Honda was about to end. Before it had truly begun, Honda survived. But the biggest setback of his life wasn't the crash. It was rejection. Determined to become a manufacturer, Honda founded a small company called Tokai Seiki and began producing piston rings. Confident in his work, he sent 50 samples to Toyota. The result was devastating. Only 3 met Toyota's standards. 3 out of 50. For someone who believed he understood engines, it was a crushing moment. Honda could have blamed Toyota. He could have complained or walked away. Instead, he asked a different question. What don't I know? That single question changed his life. The boy who hated classrooms became a student. Not because he wanted a degree, because he wanted answers. He studied engineering, metallurgy, manufacturing. Every mistake became a lesson. Every failed experiment made the next one better. For nearly 2 years, he learned, tested, failed, and improved. Then he returned to Toyota with better designs, better knowledge, and a completely different mindset. This time, Toyota approved his piston rings. The order was placed. At last, Honda had become a real manufacturer. It looked like his biggest struggle was finally behind him. It wasn't. Japan was pulled into World War II. Honda's factories were converted to support wartime production. Then came the bombing. One factory was destroyed. Still, he refused to quit. He kept rebuilding. He kept working. He kept believing the future could be saved. Then, fate struck again. In 1945, a powerful earthquake collapsed what remained of his other factory. Years of work gone. Machines gone. The business he had fought so hard to build reduced to rubble. Imagine standing there, watching everything you've created disappear. Most people would have given up. Honda didn't. For the first time in years, he stopped. Honda sold what remained of Tokai Seiki to Toyota. Then he walked away. For several months, he did almost nothing. He later called it his leisure period. But outside his window, Japan was changing. Cities were broken. Fuel was scarce. People weren't dreaming about sports cars. They were simply trying to get from one place to another. And that ordinary problem would inspire an extraordinary company. One day, Honda found a small surplus engine, the kind once used to power military generators. He looked at the engine, then at a bicycle, and suddenly the answer became obvious. He mounted the engine onto the bicycle. It wasn't beautiful, it wasn't revolutionary, it simply solved a real problem. Sometimes the biggest ideas begin that way. His neighbors saw it. They wanted one too, so Honda built another, then another. Demand grew faster than he expected. Soon, the surplus engines were gone. Once again, he faced a choice: stop or build something better. You already know which choice Honda made. Instead of searching for more engines, Honda designed his own. Then, in 1948, inside a modest workshop with very little money, Honda Motor Company was born. There was only one problem. Soichiro Honda knew how to build engines. He didn't know how to build the business. And solving that problem would become one of the smartest decisions of his entire life. Honda could build remarkable machines, but he knew he couldn't build a global company alone. In 1949, he met the man who would change Honda forever: Takeo Fujisawa. The two men couldn't have been more different. Honda loved engines. Fujisawa understood business. Honda focused on innovation. Fujisawa focused on growth. One built the product. The other built the company. Together, they became one of the greatest partnerships in business history, and their biggest success was still waiting. In 1958, Honda introduced a motorcycle unlike anything before it: the Super Cub. Small, reliable, simple. Almost anyone could ride it. You didn't need to be a racer. You didn't need mechanical knowledge. You simply got on and rode. People loved it, first across Japan, then across Asia, then across the world. Eventually, more than 100 million Super Cubs would be produced. making it the best-selling motor vehicle in history. The boy who once wasn't trusted to repair a customer's car had built a machine trusted by the entire world. But Soichiro Honda wasn't satisfied. He wanted America. There was just one problem. America didn't want Japanese motorcycles. At the time, many people believed Japanese products were cheap, poorly made, and unreliable. Motorcycles had another image problem. People associated them with outlaw biker gangs. Honda realized the machine wasn't the problem, the image was. So instead of changing the motorcycle, Honda changed the story. You meet the nicest people on a Honda. Students rode them, parents rode them, office workers rode them. Honda wasn't simply selling motorcycles, it was changing who people believed motorcycles were built for. And it worked. But deep inside, Soichiro Honda was still the same boy who loved speed. So Honda entered the world's toughest competitions. The Isle of Man TT, Formula One. Victory didn't come immediately. There were failures, broken engines, painful defeats, years of learning. But that had always been Honda's way. When Toyota rejected him, he learned. When war destroyed his factories, he rebuilt. When business wasn't his strength, he found the right partner. Every obstacle became another lesson. Every failure became another step forward. While others avoided their weaknesses, Honda chased them, because he believed every problem was simply another machine, waiting to be understood. Soichiro Honda passed away in 1991. By then, his company was building motorcycles, cars, engines, and technology used in almost every corner of the world. But perhaps the most incredible part of his story is how many times it almost ended. The racing crash, Toyota's rejection, the bombing, the earthquake, even his own lack of business experience. Any one of them could have been the end. Instead, each one became the beginning of something better. A poor blacksmith's son became an engineer. A racer became a manufacturer. A man who lost almost everything became an inventor once again. And an engineer who couldn't build a company alone found the partner who helped change the world. Honda wasn't built because Soichiro Honda never failed. Honda was built because every time life proved him wrong, he chose to learn instead of quit. And maybe that's the real lesson. Success doesn't belong to the person who never falls. It belongs to the one who keeps getting back up. Because one day, a curious little boy saw an automobile rolling through a quiet village road. He chased it until he couldn't run anymore. The car disappeared, but the dream never did. And in many ways, Soichiro Honda spent the rest of his life still chasing it.
This is the story of how a poor boy who could barely afford to eat created the most reliable car brand in the world, Honda.